everybody. I'm Margie Meacham, founder of Learning to Go and author of Brain Matters, How to Help Anyone Learn Anything Using Neuroscience. And this is another edition of our Learning to Go podcast. With me today is Debbie Wooldridge. Debbie is a founder and the CEO of ttcinnovations. They're a training outsource development company, and they really are doing some fabulous work. I've had the chance to partner with Debbie and her team several times, and they've just opened a new division as well on staff augmentation. What I've asked Debbie here to talk to us about today is something really exciting. They call it their Millennial Project. So without further ado, Debbie, welcome, and tell me about the Millennial Project.
Well, hi, Margie, and thank you so much for inviting me to be on your podcast. And we're so excited about the Millennial Project. The Millennial Project is basically a series of 3 half-day workshop sessions. The goal of it is to promote a deeper and richer understanding of the opportunities and success and growth that companies who embrace generational differences and engage in the emerging new workforce can have together. One of the challenges that we have uncovered in talking with companies is that business as usual isn't working anymore. And so that was kind of our problem statement that we started with when we began our work in development of the Millennial Project, is kind of figuring out why don't things work anymore in companies, and why are companies having such a difficult time attracting and retaining this newer, younger workforce. And what we uncovered is that the company culture didn't necessarily reflect what millennials are looking for when they're out looking for a job. So the idea behind the Millennial Project was to create a training program that allowed companies to start off in the session 1 talking about the different cultural aspects of different generations working together. And then we did a second session that was really geared towards the human resource department and training department to help them figure out what do we do to attract and retain millennials, as well as sections for managers on how to lead millennials. And then our last session, which is one of the things that I think makes this program so unique from other generational training programs, is our Becoming an Intrapreneur session. And it's designed specifically for millennials. And so what we have asked companies to do is identify in your teams millennials who you are looking at to become the future leadership of your company. Send them to this session, and we'll work together with these millennials and really help them figure out how are they going to be contributors to the long-term strategy of the company. So those are kind of the 3 sessions that we offer as part of the Millennial Project. Companies can pick and choose the sessions that they want to offer for their team. Some companies may choose to do all 3 sessions. Some companies come to us and they say, you know, we've been talking about these generational differences for some time now. We get it. We know that there's issues. We know we need to be making changes. We just don't know how to do it. So we kind of skip that first session and then move right into problem solving and moving into the second and third sessions with them.
Okay, so let's step back for just a second for anyone who's listening who might not be sure that they could actually define a millennial. What is your definition?
Well, currently millennials in our definition for the Millennial Project are those that were born in between the years of 1980 to 2000. They're typically right now 18 to 35 years old. So our oldest millennials are in the workforce, and they've been in the workforce for quite some time. And some of our youngest millennials are just now starting to join the workforce.
So as you say, they have been around now for quite some time. So why are we still struggling with this? Why are we still trying to figure them out?
Yeah, you know, isn't that funny? And so many times we'll post a blog post out on our website about millennials, and every once in a while we'll add it. We always add it to our Facebook feed, and sometimes we'll get these comments like, "Why are we still talking about this? We know millennials exist." The reason we're still talking about this is because millennials are different. This generation is dramatically different. And the thing is that companies are only just now beginning to understand the implications of that difference in their workforce. And here's why. 2008, 2009 happened in this country, and it was a recession. People who, traditionalists and baby boomers who were on a trajectory to do retirement pretty quickly, lost a lot of money. the So many people who had so much invested in the stock market when things went south lost their resources. They lost what they were planning on retiring on. So they've stayed in the company a lot longer than anticipated. So companies didn't have to worry too much about it, because not only that, but a lot of companies were downsizing during the recession. So they weren't all that interested in hiring these new generation folks. And around 2015, what we saw happening was that the economy began to really return to a more stable environment. Many of our traditionals started leaving the companies. Our baby boomers started talking about the fact that they were going to be retiring soon. And what happened is companies were looking around saying, well, good golly, who's going to fill all of these leadership roles? And what they realized is what they were going to be left with was a very different generation, a very different group of people. And all of a sudden they started thinking, well, gosh, how do we make this work?
So, Debbie, the millennials have been in the workforce, as you say, for a while now. So, why are we still struggling to figure them out?
Well, that's a great question, and an interesting fact, honestly. And the bottom line is there's kind of a global phenomenon that's occurring. It's global aging, and one of the biggest things that we see happening now is as a result of what happened to this country back in 2008, 2009. The recession that occurred back in 2008 and 2009 changed the world for really everybody, including the companies here in the United States. And what happened was that traditionalists and baby boomers who were planning on leaving soon, traditionalists more quickly than our baby boomers, of course, were planning on retiring. And a recession hit, and many people lost all of their retirement nest eggs because of stock market crashing and issues and financial insecurity. And so a lot of people put on hold that plan, which worked out great for companies because companies had such great tribal knowledge of employees, and they stuck around a lot longer than anybody had ever expected. The other thing that was happening is that companies were suffering throughout the recession as well, and were oftentimes downsizing their workforce. So what was occurring during that time period is that there were some job openings and millennials were entering the workforce, but they weren't entering in the volume that had happened in the past. And so companies just were not preparing for a change in leadership. And around 2015, things started getting a lot better. Traditionalists started retiring back in their normal retirement plan, and baby boomers started planning to do the same. They started looking towards, how is my exit strategy going to happen? And what happened then is that companies started to have to face reality that there were going to be challenges in who was going to take over those leadership roles. And the people that are going to be left to take over the leadership are millennials. And unfortunately, millennials come from a very different place. And so companies who have not yet embraced changing their environment, changing the way they do business to meet the needs of this new generation are struggling to attract and retain millennial employees to fill these opening spots. So it's really all about the fact that the world has moved on now. Currently, the workforce is made up of about 4% traditionalists, 31% baby boomers, 31% Gen Xers, and now millennials, as of 2015, are the largest group in the workforce, and they're at 35%. By
Yeah.
2020, the number is going to be 50%, and by 2025, 75% of our workforce will be millennials.
Yeah, I've been watching those trends too, Debbie. And can you tell us, they are very different. What are some of the major differences in how millennials see the workplace and behave within it?
Well, some of the things that I think are so important to recognize about millennials is, first of all, they don't view the hierarchy. For them, it's not the, I'm going to start as the entry-level employee, and then I'm going to work for a couple of years, and then I'm going to apply for the next level up. I'll become a manager, and then I'll become a supervisor of managers, and then I'll become a VP, and eventually it's not a hierarchy for them. When they join a company, they join a position because it meets what they're looking for right now. So they come out of college and they're like, maybe they majored in architecture. So they'll join an architectural firm and they'll ask for a mentor. They'll ask for somebody to help coach them and bring them up to speed with the way the company works. Then they'll start throwing out some really great ideas about how the company could actually work in a better and different way. And they'll start talking about what are some other opportunities. And then as soon as they start getting comfortable in this position, they're ones who are looking around saying, well, you know what, I'm really enjoying what I'm doing here, but what I see Tom doing over there in marketing seems very intriguing, and I'd really like to learn a little bit about that. And yeah, I went to college for architecture, but you know what? Marketing thing looks like something that I might be really interested in doing. And millennials, more than any other generation, really do embrace the idea that everything in life is an opportunity to learn, which is an amazing thing for companies, honestly. If a company can embrace that environment and say, oh my gosh, you want to learn how to do accounting? Well, come on over to our department and let's talk about this. Because millennials are so open to the opportunity to learn pretty much anything. They came from a generation where information is at their fingertips. If they don't know how to change a tire on a car, they don't need to go buy a manual. They get online, they bring out their smartphone and they type it into YouTube, how to change a tire, and boom, they watch a 5-second video on how to change a tire and they change their tire. It's a completely different type of generation, and it's a completely different type of employee. And companies who embrace this and say to themselves, you know what, that brings value to my organization. Those are strengths that we're looking for, the ability to bend and flex and move, add value to our organization, are going to be very successful. Some of the things
Absolutely.
some of the things
Go
that
ahead.
millennials don't worry so much about is their paycheck. It's not that they don't want to make money, but millennials, more than any other generation, are willing to say take a job that pays $40,000 a year because it's something they love versus taking on a position that they're offered, like say $100,000 if they think that that job's going to be boring. So the big giant paycheck, you can't dangle that in front of millennials and expect them to jump and do what you want them to do. So they're not likely to take a raise to take on something that they don't find value in. So money just, it's not that they don't have bills, because they do, and they absolutely pay their bills, and they do worry about money like every other generation, but it's not the driver that Gen X felt. It's not the hierarchy that the baby boomers felt. I mean, baby boomers, they were working themselves up the ladder. Gen Xers were looking at the way to make the most amount of money in the quickest amount of time so I can get out and do what I want to do. Millennials are more than willing to put in 100 hours a week doing something that they love and feel passionate about. And they'll do it for the price point that it's being offered. And it's not you can't offer them an additional $100,000 and tell them to go do something horrible that they don't want to do, because they're not likely to accept that position.
So these changes, and they are overwhelmingly positive. I think that's one of the important messages here, is that there's so much discussion about the millennials that it can sound like this is some problem we have to solve. And that's not the case at all. It's an opportunity to take advantage of. The things you're describing, Debbie, they're all actual physical changes in their brains as a result of the inundation with media and that instant learning that you talked about. So it really has wired their brains a bit differently. All of the experiences they've had watching their parents kill themselves on sometimes unfulfilling jobs, all of those things have factored into what we now understand as a millennial. And I understand that you have a really unique advantage when it comes to that because you have a number of millennials right in your own family. Can you tell us a little about that?
I do. I have my own testing ground right here in my family. I am the mother of twins who are now 27 years old, so they're in the perfect mid-range of millennials, and both of them have millennial spouses. So I have a group of 4 testers right here. So everything that I believe to be true about millennials is based on my experience with my millennials. um,
That's great.
Honestly, living with millennials has really opened my eyes, and it's one of the reasons why I think I'm so passionate about this topic. Because, like what you said, is that there's so much negative speak out there about this generation. And in fact, as a part of the Millennial Project, one of the things that we did that I think was a unique and a fun experience for us, but so enlightening, is that we did a man on the street poll interview. We took video cameras out and just went out here in San Diego, out downtown, and just randomly pulled people and asked them to describe millennials, give us the top 3 words that describe millennials. And it was just shocking the amount of people who just shared so much that they see in the media all the time about the fact that, millennials that think that everybody deserves a trophy. Millennials think that everything should be handed to them on a silver plate. They live with mommy and daddy and they expect mommy and daddy to take care of everything. And you know what? None of that's true. None of it. And it's so surprising to me that when you look online or you read a newspaper article about millennials and you talk with other people and you talk with companies about their experience with millennials, there's still so much of the stereotypical speak about the generation. And it's shocking to me because it's so not true. I mean, obviously there are people in the millennial generation who maybe do meet some of those criteria, but there are people in Gen X that do, and baby boomers, traditionalists. I mean, you
Absolutely.
have
Yeah.
people in every generation who feel they're entitled. And in fact, what's really funny is that the very first generation to be called entitled were the baby boomers. So if you look back in history, and when those baby boomers got all crazy and uppity up and joined the workforce, past history showed they were actually labeled, in the New York Times labeled them the entitled generation. And now if you think about a baby boomer, I mean, the media portrays baby boomers as these are the people back there in the salt mines, not taking care of business while everybody else plays. And it's just ironic. And I hope that it is a changing tide, that companies are really starting to recognize the value and the strength that this generation is going to bring to them and help them be incredibly successful
Okay,
moving
well,
forward.
let's see if we can do some of that mind changing right now. As you know, the audience, most of the people listening to you are learning professionals of some sort, teachers, trainers, instructional designers like you and I. So, what are 3 things a learning professional can do to make the training, the learning experiences that they are crafting more appropriate for the millennial folks?
That's a really great question, and really hugely important, because training today is not going, if we continue building training solutions the way we used to build them, we're going to find that obviously our employees are no longer interested in completing the training. So for us, the important thing to keep in mind is that millennials are very quick to try new technology. In fact, they're 2.5 times more likely to adapt new technology much earlier than any of the generations that have come before them. So incorporating technology in your learning solutions is so important. One of the other things to keep in mind is that millennials value knowledge over just checking the box that they've completed a training program. So the bottom line is they are starving for training opportunities. So instructional designers like yourself and myself are in a great place to prove to be so important to companies, because millennials, more than any other generation, truly value professional development. In fact, they're likely to not join a company that doesn't have a strong professional development program in place. And that's one of the things that millennials are most likely to ask about when they're interviewing for a job. Talk to me about what kind of training programs you offer. So one of the other things that when we were doing research for the Millennial Project that we sent out a survey to find out was, what type of training do millennials most want to engage in? And we, of course, were expecting to see back that the number one opportunity that they would want would be online learning. And we assumed that that made a lot of sense because we know millennials love technology, they're on their smartphones, they're on the computer. And you know that that actually ranked fourth in the
Hmm.
list of millennials prefer. The
Wow.
number,
So go
yeah.
ahead. I was going to ask what I've got to know what the top ones were.
Yeah, the top way that millennials want to learn is face-to-face. They prefer to have a mentor. They prefer to have a coach. They prefer to they're interested in online learning in that if there is a task that they need to learn, they'll take an online training course. And what they want to do is have that, they can do that learning in advance, but then they want to come together and they want to talk. They want to discuss what they learned. They want to talk about, well, what if I did this? Or what does it mean if I did that? So that ability to get together and collaborate, have the opportunity for face-to-face time is essential to how millennials want to learn. So when we are looking at from a corporate perspective, when we're doing our analysis and design, it's essential for us to really be taking a look at the audience and identifying how are we going to create this training program so that it really is going to be reflective of the audience that's going to be receiving it. And if most of our audience is going to be made up of millennials, we need to be sure that we're including opportunities for actual physical discussions, conversations to happen to really enforce on the learning.
Okay, those are some great tips for instructional designers and really leaders as well. So thank you for sharing that. Now, in addition to the Millennial Project, I'm sure you're working on a bunch of other things. What's something that's really got you excited right now?
Well, one of the things that I'm working on is that I will be having a book launched on May 19th. It's called Unleashing the Intrapreneur, Changing the Face of Corporate America, One Millennial at a Time. And I'm excited about this book because the intention of the book is to really help millennials find their voice, their passion, their vision, and aligning those ideas so that they have the opportunity to really embrace where they want to go in their career and really help lead them towards a fulfilling future in an organization. And one of the things that inspired me to work on this book was this general idea about this generation, that this generation wants to be an entrepreneur. They want entrepreneur, sorry, an entrepreneur, and that they everybody plans to open up their own company. And you know what? This is going to be a huge, horrible opportunity for companies because you won't have any employees, because millennials want to go be the next Mark Zuckerberg, and they're all going to start a Facebook and run their own companies. And reality is this generation is least likely to want to start their own business. So it's a golden opportunity for millennials and for companies to help them utilize the spirit of being an entrepreneur, that ability to be innovative, the ability to be an effective communicator, the ability to be a leader. Take all of those traits bring them into a corporate setting, and help them flourish and fly in the organization. It's a win-win for everybody. The millennial has the opportunity to bring forth really creative solutions and ideas in a non-risk environment, because they've got the support of the corporation. The company has this great independent idea, these great thinkers, these intuitive folks who are willing to take a risk and bring forth new ideas and grow as an organization. So the whole book is about really helping millennials to embrace their spirit and apply that within an organization, and how can they be an effective communicator and an effective leader in their organizations.
Well, it sounds like perfect timing for a book like that, and it sounds like you are the perfect person to write it, Debbie. So I'm really looking forward to that book, and I'm sure our listeners will want more information on it too. So I'll be sure and keep them posted on May 19th when it's unleashed. So please
Great.
keep me in the loop on it.
Thank you. I
So,
appreciate it.
yeah. So how can people learn more about you and your company, TTC Innovations?
We have of course, our website, ttcinnovations.com. In fact, we just updated and launched a brand new website, so I'm really excited about that. On the website, there are links out to our blog so they can keep up with blog posts about current topics in instructional design. We also have a newsletter that go out to the website, and you can sign up for our newsletter. We send out a newsletter every 2 weeks that talks about kind of industry trends, things that are happening out in the world of instructional design. The other thing that we do is a monthly webinar. It's a free webinar where we're talking about different instructional design theory, different tools for instructional designers. The topics range. Every month is something new, and you can either sign up for those on our website, or via the newsletter you'll get information about the next upcoming webinar that's coming up. We're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and then of course the website also features the Millennial Project, so people can learn a little bit more about the Millennial Project itself and some of the information behind it, watch a little quick video about the training program, and reach out to us for additional information.
Okay, fantastic. And for those of you listening to the podcast, all of those links that Debbie mentioned are available on my site, LearningToGo.info, on the tab podcast. So you can grab that information at any time. And just a little bit of disclosure, sometimes I'm a guest blogger on that blog that Debbie mentioned. So don't be surprised if you see my byline there once in a while.
And it's awesome. We love having you be a blogger with us. Just great insights, especially around brain and the impacts in instructional design and learning. So fabulous to have you as part of our blog team.
Thank you. Well, Debbie, I want to thank you again for sharing your expertise and telling us about this exciting Millennial Project. And I'm sure you are going to hear from some of our listeners who have some follow-up questions. So thanks, everybody, for spending time with us on the Learning to Go podcast. And please tune in again soon for another great edition and another great guest. Thanks again, Debbie.
Thanks, Margie. I appreciate it.